a little colder here in the Midwest. I got used to not having that.
Coach, welcome back to Simon Scott Assembly Hall for the first round of the 2024 NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Championship. Congratulations on your at-large selection to the bracket. And we will get started with an opening statement from Oklahoma head coach Jennie Baranczyk.
Well, I tell you, the NCAA tournament never gets old, so we are really excited to be here and very, very thankful. And like I said, it's a little cooler here than it is in Oklahoma, so I'm just hopefully it's a little warmer in the gym.
All right, we will take questions in the room first, followed by Zoom. If you're joining us on Zoom, please raise your hand and we'll get to your question. In the room, raise your hand and be sure to state your name and affiliation.
Hey Coach, Talia Goodman with the Next Hoops. FGCU is a team that's comfortable with that 12 seed. They've had it the last 2 years. They've made it to the second round the last 2 years. How do you kind of adjust your mindset knowing that fact?
Well, I think at this time of year, it's always about the game that you bring anyway, right? And so you know that your opponent's going to be a great opponent. So no one's going in underestimating. No one wants to play for Florida Gulf Coast ever, right? And that's part of that's also my background and understanding. And we've also played some really good teams in the first round the last couple of years. So this is not a team that's going to sneak up on us. We have very high respect. We understand how good they are. And we have to be able to adjust. And it's about how you come out and you play this time of year anyway. That's where our focus will be.
Coach, we'll go on your right in the second row.
Mm-hmm.
Jennie, Zach Very Wink News in Fort Myers. What kind of stands out to you when you look at FGCU?
What doesn't stand out, right? No, honestly, I think the history stands out. I think the way that they can stretch the floor stands out. It's a little bit different than what we've seen in the Big 12. So that's going to be a huge adjustment. But they're a team. They're not a Cinderella team. They're not a team that's sneaking up on anybody. They're not a team that's going to surprise anybody. They're a very, very talented team, and he's done an incredible job for a long time. And so you know that they're all versatile. You know they can all put the ball on the floor. You know they can all shoot the three. So it's just going to be a fun game for us.
We'll go second row in the middle.
There were, ups and downs this season for you guys between non-conference and conference play. How did you stay motivated, and what do you see as the biggest where did you see that point change from, point A to point B?
You know how many times I've been asked that question and how many times I usually hear a number of, this is how many days you've lost since you've lost to such and such a team. But honestly, I feel like today, adversity and growth isn't celebrated as much as wins and losses are. And I think this is a team that has really grown a lot. And as much as you want to win every single game that you play, you still have to understand why you're playing. And it isn't always about playing to win a game. It's about playing in front of a mirror, falling down, getting up, looking in the mirror, taking ownership, taking responsibility, growing as a team. You got to hear our players talk about that earlier. And you don't get to just manufacture that. We have so many outside resources now in terms of how you build a team. There's books, there's literature, but until you get in that space, you fall on your face, you roll up your sleeves together, you crawl forward, you sometimes fall back. But when you're in a group, to me, basketball is the greatest sport because it's so intimate. There's nothing you can hide behind, but there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of experts. There's a lot of outside voices that can tell you what you should be doing, what should be different, what coaches should be doing, what coaches should be doing different. But this was a group that decided to get together. This was a group that decided, you know what, instead of worrying about winning and losing, we're going to be addicted to growing. And so we're just going to get better. And we're still going to fall down. We're still going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn and we're going to grow together. And that, to me, has probably been the best part about this team. But also, this is a story for people to look at all over in any level. I have young kids that play. And I see at a young age that it's all about winning. And we kind of forget how amazing this game is when you allow growth to happen.
Coach Greg Campbell with IUHoosiers.com. Maybe along the same lines there. You guys have been in playoff mode for the last couple weeks, right, with the way that the host sites are selected in the top 16. Do you think that helps your team as you move now into the intensity of the NCAA tournament?
I wish I knew. I don't know. I don't necessarily like how we came out in our conference tournament, but no, this is why you play. The NCAA tournament, postseason basketball, this is what you do, you know. And I go back to even a few years ago, and I can't believe it's already been 4 years since everything was shut down from a COVID standpoint. But it was at that moment, I think, that all of us, in this, especially in the position that I'm in, you realize how much this means to young people. They work their whole lives for these moments. And sometimes we think, oh, it's just a sport, but it isn't. It's a lot more than that. And so I think from that standpoint, this is the best time of year, and it can bring out the best and the worst and everything in between. But you hold on to your team chemistry. You hold on to wanting to play together just one more minute, and that's it. And so that's what you hope that when you step out on the floor, that's what you hope you get to see. I still hope you get to see us play really hard and have fun and have a smile on our face and make sure that we're high-fiving and we're pointing to each other, because that, to me, is Oklahoma basketball.
We'll move to Zoom. Barry Trammell, go ahead.
Yeah, Jenny, your alma mater making a lot of women's basketball news the last couple of years. Of course, you played for Lisa. She's doing a fantastic job. What did you learn from her? What have you taken from her when you're building your program at Drake and now at Oklahoma?
Well, one, Barry, I did not talk about my playing days yesterday. They asked me who was good in the Big Ten when I played, and then decided to let me know how long ago it was that I did play. So I not only have my players telling me that, I have my own children that also say that ask me all the time if I was as good as Caitlin Clark, and I said, yep, just different time, but no, it's not true at all. I love the way that the game is being elevated, and I feel like Lisa Bluder does an incredible job of leading with humility. And I know obviously she has a superstar on her team in Caitlin, and I think Caitlin has become a household name. And I think that's through obviously her success, but also through the NIL platform as well, because I think that's what's really helping elevate the game. At the same time, 20 years ago when I did play here, they didn't have the fans that they do now here at Indiana. So you look at what the sport of women's basketball has continued to do is just elevate on a national level. So I've been really impressed from a fan base standpoint to be able to see the number of people that are falling in love with this sport. One person can bring them to the sport, but it takes that team, it takes that community to really get behind to elevate where we're at. But again, going back to your question about Lisa, I think she does a great job of leading with humility. I think she does a great job of, giving the players on her team the keys. That's something that I've really taken away and really loved playing for her.
We'll go back to Zoom. Eric Bailey, go ahead.
Jenny, I have a two-part question for you. I want to ask you, the first question is I wanted to ask you about just the time span. This is only going to be your third game in 3 weeks. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for the program? And secondly, kind of a fun question, Jordy became a viral sensation last year. How excited is she for this tournament? And has anything changed? Does she still have the passion that she showed last year in the tournament?
Well, if you saw her crying at the conference tournament, yes, that hasn't changed. But, to answer your first question, coaches love practice. So this is the first time that I have ever had, as a head coach, a whole week in between the selection and the conference tournament. So normally we've had the conference tournament that weekend right before you find out who you play, you stay in that game prep mode. So it was really nice for us to go back and have a week where you literally can't really focus on an opponent because you don't know who you're going to play. And so you get to really focus on all those things that you really want to work on. So players love games a lot more than they necessarily love practice, but I don't know. I mean, there's still going to be some rust that comes off. There's still a difference of being in that game shape, and you can only do so much from a practice standpoint to really, emphasize that. So I'm hoping that will be great for us. It'll take probably a little bit, but we'll get, at some point it becomes about the game, so we'll get there. And as far as my daughter, that moment really probably opened my eyes to children of coaches, because, and especially moms. And I know there's a lot of us out there, but there are also not a lot of us out there that are moms in coaching. And it's, you kind of sometimes don't realize that it's not your job, it's your whole family's job. And it's a lifestyle. And so I never want to take away that. I love the passion. I love how invested they are. And it's not just Jordy. Even our youngest she hasn't really advanced much past the concession stand, but a little bit. She cares now, or she'll at least ask if we won or lost. My son blames the refs after every game, no matter what. But I love the passion that they have. I love the investment that they have. And I think it just gives you a glimpse into really what a coach's kid's life is really all about.
Are there any other questions in the room? We'll go in the back, middle, and if there's anything else on Zoom, raise your hand and we'll get to you.
Brian Brinkley, Oklahoma Radio. Coach, looking at getting ready for this game with Florida Gulf Coast, I was looking at their positions. Every single player is listed as a shooter, not a guard or a forward or a center, shooter.
That's because they shoot.
Exactly.
Yep.
And they've shot, I think, almost 200 more threes than you have, and you shoot a lot of threes. What kind of unique challenges is this? This seems like Iowa State on times 10 in terms of three-point shooting.
Well, I think that's probably the Big 12 reference point is playing against an Iowa State, right, who can shoot the ball really well. And again, it provides a lot of challenge, but Portland provided us a lot of challenge. IUPUI provided us a lot of challenge a year ago, and I know Drake provides a lot of people challenges, right? And so when you're looking at this game, there's going to be some kind of a challenge. So it will really stretch our defense. We have to think completely different than we have, especially in the last few weeks where we've really played dominant inside presence players. So that is something that we will have to adjust. You can't just sit in the paint. You have to guard everybody, and everybody has to guard. So from that standpoint, of course there's going to be a challenge, but it's the NCAA tournament, there's supposed to be challenge. I mean, you look at upsets constantly. You could look at the men's tournament started yesterday. Today the women's tournament starts. I mean, people's brackets are already broken, and that's what this is all about. And so you got to show up, you got to play, and you have to take on any and every challenge.
We'll go back to Zoom. Chris Williams, go ahead.
Yeah, Jenny, you just touched on a little bit, but do you feel like there's a benefit when you are playing on Saturday? The girls can see the madness unfolding and kind of settle in a little bit instead of playing day one of the tournament?
I've been part of both, so I don't know. I think there's just an excitement anyway, but I do think it's been fun to be able to watch our team talking about it, and everybody's got a different game on their phone, and they're watching whether it's the, any kind of postseason games. I think especially with the women's side adding another tournament this year, those have been great games as well, and there's been access to be able to see it. I love the fact that our game continues to grow and there's access to see every game. That hasn't always been the case, and the interesting part is that our women don't know any different, and I love that.
And we'll go to Zoom for the last question. Barry Trammell.
Yeah, Jenny, when I went back and looked at Iowa's attendance figures over the years, and this and they've exploded with Caton Clark, but they'd really built it up before Caton. Does that give you confidence that you can do the same, even if, hopefully you get a superstar, but that you can build the interest without some sort of, cultural icon coming around?
I'm going to answer that in a couple different ways. One, the state of Iowa has always been very supportive of women's sports and women's basketball in particular. I mean, the high school games are covered. The girls' high school state tournament outdrew the boys' high school state tournament. I grew up in a way that it mattered. People cared about the sport of women's basketball and supported the sport. So yes, this is an instance that Caitlin probably picked the right place to be able to stay home because people already had that desire and care for the sport of women's basketball. When I left Drake, I knew it would take me a lot to leave. Attendance has always been, and building your fan involvement has always been a huge passion of mine. And I wasn't going to ever go anywhere that I didn't think that we could build something. Now, understand, to me, the way that you build it is grassroots. We're part of it. So I looked at Oklahoma, and you look at the way that at Oklahoma, you look at what our softball program has done from a national perspective. The World Series is in Oklahoma City, so you see women's sports held to very high regard. You look at women's gymnastics and what they have been able to do from a national perspective and knowing what they've been able to do from an attendance standpoint. So to me, in looking at Oklahoma, I 100% believe that we will continue to build the fan involvement, the fan numbers that I feel like we're very capable of doing. I know it wasn't long ago, playing at Oklahoma, you didn't want to play there. You never wanted to play because you knew that there were going to be a lot of fans and fan involvement. So I'm not saying we want people to come and sit in a seat. We're talking about people being part of the success that we want. So I really do have the if you build it, they will come. We're going to continue to build a fan base that is part of what we're doing. And therefore, people will start to come. Not the fans will come. We're going to build this, and the players will continue to come. So I feel like our fans are very engaged. I feel like we have very passionate fans. We just continue to need more of them, and I think more and more people are continuing to come every year that we've been here. But yes, if there was not a belief in that, I would not be here.
Coach, thank you for your time, and have a great practice
Thank
today.
you. Thanks, everyone, for covering women's basketball. Appreciate it. Boomer.